Coming up on episode 74 of In the Front Row, we talk to a Renaissance man. It's Eddie George. George, a 1995 Heisman Trophy winner, tells us about his journey from Philadelphia to Fort Union Military Academy, made his way to Ohio State where he won the 1995 Heisman Trophy, eventually drafted by the Houston Oilers/Tennessee Titans, and had a 9-year NFL career. He tells us about his journey, which post-playing includes acting and now coaching at Tennessee State, where he's the head coach at the HBCU in the state of Tennessee. Our guest in episode 74, the Heisman Trophy winner, Eddie George. Eddie, first of all, man, I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to join us. I know you're a busy man now that you're a head football coach, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But we always love to start the beginning with our guests. And for you, it started in Philadelphia, growing up there. Tell us about, sports in Philadelphia for you. What were you playing? How big were sports and athletics in your life?
Sports was a big part of my life growing up in the Philadelphia area. I grew up in Philly, but also grew up mainly in the Abington, the North Hills area. Went to Abington High School during my high school years. And sports was everything, whether I was playing football, basketball, running track, tried roller hockey at some point in time, lacrosse. So it was a really big thing to be in athletics and play all different sports, baseball also growing up, because Philadelphia is a big sports town, and they support every single team, and they're passionate about every single sport, whether it was the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, the Eagles. We even had the Philadelphia Stars, the USFL.
Okay.
Very passionate about any Philadelphia sport, lacrosse, anything. It was like that. So, but for me, football was my passion. My father introduced me to the game. He used to take me to all of the little league games growing up, whether it was the Upper Dublin Cardinals, Abington Raiders. My wife is filming right now. I'm going to hold her for Instagram and media. And it was that's how we connected. How he talked about all the great players of his time. O.J. Simpson or Billy Sims or Earl Campbell, Jim Brown, all the great running backs. And he played fullback, and that's how I got introduced to the game. And I wanted to be just like him. Everywhere, if you looked at any one of my childhood pictures, you'll see I have a football in my hand. Everywhere I went, I was trying to strike up a game, one-on-one football, or galvanize the kids in the neighborhood to play so I can try to run all over them. So it was always something in my blood that I guess goes back to my grandfather, because he loved the game too.
Did you have a guy? Who was your guy? Being a Philly sports fan, did you have a running back you maybe emulated or you looked up to?
Oh, man. Growing up with Paul Palmer, he went to University of Temple. He was the dude.
Yeah.
Growing up in Philly. I used to follow Penn State big time. So I was like DJ Dozier, Blair Thomas, Richie Anderson, for the Philadelphia Eagles, Wilbur Montgomery. That was probably the most notable running back at that particular time. That was a great one. But I was a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. I loved the Buddy Ryan 46 defense. The year that we lost to the Raiders, and still pains me to this day, to the Oakland Raiders in 1980, because had they won that game, we had a parade in Philadelphia, and we had no school that whole week. But we had school the whole week, so I hated the Eagles after that. But no, I just recall studying all the great backs. But certainly I was a big Philadelphia sports fan.
So that's why Clyde Simmons, one of our previous guests, is on your staff right now, right? He's your defensive line coach.
Yes, Clyde, man. I'm probably a bigger fan of Clyde than he realizes. Like I said, growing up in the city, he was a part of that great defense, the 1990 Philadelphia Eagles defense. That whole, really that 89, 90, 91, 92 defense was just, they never won a championship, but pound for pound, you can rank them among one of the great defenses of all time. And I'm talking about 85 Bears, 86 Giants, even the Saints' great defense with Pat Swilling and those boys. They had the Ravens of 2001, who I faced, and I also faced Clyde when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it is an honor to have someone of Clyde's caliber, of his stature, of his pedigree on our staff to coach our young men, to teach them how to be a professional, how to work, how to embrace life. And I've enjoyed getting to know Clyde on this level. So it's been great.
Again, Philly roots deep in you, but you make a decision to go to Fort Union Academy in Virginia.
Time out. Time out. I didn't make that decision. My mother made that decision.
There's always a smart person that makes those decisions, right? So what went into that decision to send you then to Fort Union Military Academy?
It wasn't much of a decision, but more or less a lifeline for me to get my act together. I was 15 years old. I wasn't doing well in school. I had big dreams, but I wasn't going anywhere fast because my grades didn't reflect, me doing it. And I didn't know how to work. To be honest with you, I was 6 foot, 168 pounds, soaking wet. I wasn't fast. I thought I was good, but I wasn't very good. I thought I was tough. I wasn't tough. I wasn't mentally tough. I wasn't the player that I thought I was. And when I went to Fort Union, it exposed that. So my mother, pulled me out of Philadelphia area, put me in a different environment that could help support the things that I wanted to do. Nothing was wrong with where I was growing up, but without my mother overseeing me on a consistent basis, because she was a single mother, my father had his issues. So it was. I was trying to find my identity, and I was finding it in the wrong places. But with Fort Union is right over my shoulder, the body, mind, and spirit, that's the shield. What it did for me, it changed the trajectory of my life. It changed my lifestyle. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about my life story, and the successes and failures if I not gone to Fort Union. So my mother sacrificed a lot to get me there. She worked 6-7 jobs as a flight attendant, as a model, as a waitress. Worked at Ford Motor Company for years. Worked endless hours just to make ends meet to get me through that. She sacrificed, and after a while, I began to embrace the principles at Fort Union Military Academy. I saw the benefits of really buying into what they were preaching and doing on a daily basis, into the culture of Fort Union. And once I did that, my life became easier. Instead of me trying to cut corners, spending all this time how can I cut corners? How can I not do my homework or not do as much work here or get out of a run or a practice? Once I truly committed and saw the fruits of my labor, I wanted more of it. I became more of a student. They had to pull me out of the gym. I would miss meals at night because I wanted to get my last bit of working out in. So I see two sides of the coin with that, of cutting corners to a great degree, and it got me absolutely nowhere, to immersing myself and really immerse myself into the culture of the structure of Fort Union and the discipline and the body, mind, and spirit mantra that they use as a lifestyle, and it really changed my entire life.
And it sounds like it changed your athletic career as well. Did that kind of go hand in hand?
Oh, no question. Because when I got to Fort Union, again, I was 6 foot, 168 pounds, and I was challenged. There were guys bigger, stronger, faster than me, smarter than me, had more experience than me. And instead of fighting against that and being bitter behind it, I said, hey, let me empty my cup and allow them to pour into me. Let me learn from a guy like Lee Green in terms of what it means to be a student athlete. He was getting recruited by the top schools in the country. Lee Green was 6'3", 225 pounds, ran a 4.5 in the 40, ran track, was a leader, was a platoon sergeant, everything you wanted. Was getting recruited by Notre Dame, UCLA, Michigan, Virginia Tech, and I'm like, whoa, I get chills just thinking about it because I'm like, yo, that's what I want. I want to be like that guy. Well liked in the locker room, a leader. Keith Burton, same thing. It was to those guys were my models of success. And once I saw that, my life changed. And if you were getting bad grades at Fork Union, you were frowned upon. you know, if you had to be booked. If you got straight A's, you got straight A's. You had high ranking officer. You were an athlete. That was considered like cool. That was the cool thing. The cool thing wasn't getting demerits and walking tours. It was the direct opposite of that. So once I adhered to that lifestyle, everything else changed in my life.
So certainly with those going hand in hand, at some point, college coaches started to come calling. What was that process like? Again, as you said, you kind of followed Penn State a little bit. You didn't go there, but was that part of the picture as well?
Well, truth be told, my senior year, was my first year starting. I didn't play my junior year. I rode the pond. I was on JV actually, and I had such a poor attitude that the JV coach didn't want me on his team.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I was selfish. He thought I was a punk. I was all about myself. Talented, but they said, "Nah, I don't want him on my team. I want him playing for me." But I changed my attitude, and I apologized for how I was. Had to be humbled. It was humble pie. So my senior year, I wind up rushing for over 1,000 yards, roughly about 1,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, led the state in scoring. And I had 0 scholarship offers. I had a partial scholarship offer to Edinboro. And there was nothing wrong with Edinboro. I think it's a wonderful institution. But in my spirit, I felt like there was something bigger for me. So instead of taking that opportunity to go to Edinboro, I went back to Fork Union for my postgraduate year. And everybody was like, are you kidding me? Kevin Plank, who's the CEO of Under Armour, was at Fork Union that year. I remember having this conversation with him in the barracks. He's like, are you absolutely out of your mind? Dude, get out of here. There's no guarantee you're going to go, to get what you want, to go to Ohio State or Maryland or go walk on somewhere. Get the hell out of here. You are crazy for coming back. But I did. I sacrificed that year because there was no guarantee I was going to get bigger offers. But I dedicated that entire summer to my craft. I worked out with these guys at the University of Penn named Sundiata Rush, Mike Turner, the name a couple guys. And they kind of took me under their wing. They showed me how to work. I would do their workouts, college workouts, and I would try to beat them and dominate them in their own workouts. So knowing that when I go back for my postgraduate year, there's no question that I'll be ready. And I came back, 6'3", grew a couple inches, added on some muscle, about 225 pounds, ran a 4.5. And my coach was, wow, you are a transformed man. I came back on a mission. And the first 6 games, I rushed for over almost 1,300 yards, and 15 touchdowns. And then that's when the ball started rolling. First, it was Louisville. They came knocking on my door, and I was like, oh, my God. Louisville is calling me to recruit me. And I'm just tickled pink because a year ago, I had no offers. Yeah. I couldn't even get them to look at my film. So Louisville started calling, and Howard Stellenberger is calling me, leaving me messages. I'm just like, oh, my God, this is crazy. And then BYU. And I'm like, oh, man, that's when they had Jamal Williams, the other 6'3" running back in the day. You can do your research. But they tried to sell me on the Twin Towers, I was 6'3", and I was like, man, to go and play for Lavelle Edwards.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame coach out in BYU, and Ty Detmer and all that whole crew. I was on cloud 9. and then, Virginia, then Virginia Tech, then Nebraska, then Florida. And it was just a crazy time for me. And I recall just in awe of how 1 year of dedication and what it could make, could change my entire landscape in terms of, not having any options to having a plethora of options with that.
Yeah, you took a chance on yourself, and certainly it paid off. So, at some point, the Ohio State University got in the mix here. What made that the perfect fit for you? Obviously, it was when you look back at it, but what was going through your mind, and you thought, okay, this is where I want to go.
Well, how Ohio State came to fruition. Honestly, I owe it all to Fort Union Military Academy. Danny Osmond, who was my platoon sergeant my first couple of years at Fort Union, graduated the same year that I went back to my postgraduate year at Fort Union, and he went to Ohio State as a athletic trainer who tapes ankles.
Yeah.
And Danny kept in touch with me. He found out, how I was doing, and he was just in all of the season I was having. And I'm wondering in the back of my mind, I'm like, what do you want? You didn't like me when I was here. In fact, we didn't like each other. You made me wax and buff a hallway by myself, gave me extra chores. You was hard on me. I mean, you made life miserable. And I'm like, well, what's up? What's going on? Why are you calling? He says, well, I don't know. I just feel like you're having such a great year. How would you feel about trying to come to Ohio State? He says, hey, man, Robert Smith is not coming. He's not here. They got a couple of backs. I think you can really fit in here. And I said, you know what? I said, I wouldn't mind at all. I said, I'm holding out for Penn State. I'm hoping that they'll give me that same look. But let me look into it. He says, okay, well, send some tape and I'll get it to you. So at the time, they had VHS. We had to package the tape, send it off, and wait 2-3 weeks. It's not like now we have Huddle. You can look at it instantaneously. So I went through that process 3 or 4 times because they couldn't believe what they were looking at. I guess they wanted to see more. I'm like, I only played in 5 games that year. Without getting into all the minutia of why and postgraduate, I only had 5 games to show what I can do. And they looked at it and they said, okay, well, we'll come down there for a visit, and just to see if, in fact, you fit the size, that all of that. So they came down, looked me over, and they said, hey, we want to bring you up for a visit. And I went up to Ohio State, and it was an okay visit. I spent most of my time in somebody's apartment, watching movies the entire trip. And I'm like, well, I need to go see, what the school's all about. I got to go see the girls. I got 48 hours. I'm in an all-boys school. I don't want to see this. Don't think you're impressing me by showing me discipline. I want to be very undisciplined. So, but the last day there, they take all the recruits over to Ohio Stadium, and it was on a day where it was gray skies. It was a chilly December day or January day, and it was about 40 degrees, and the wind is blowing, and you can hear the rhythm of the rope hitting the flagpole.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ding, 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 ding. And we go in, we're gathered around, and they're flashing our name and number on the screen, saying Eddie George, Fort Union Military Academy. And I was just looking around. I was like, ooh, this just feels right. I said, it's big time football. Woody Hayes coached here, Michigan, Ohio State, Archie Griffin, and Keith Byers, Chris Carter. All of these great names are just, and I'm feeling like, I said, this feels right. It just feels right. I was trusting that inner spirit to guide me, and it just felt right. And I committed on the spot. And once I did that, Penn State called the next and they wanted me to come on a visit, and I wanted to wear the all white black shoes and play for Joe Paterno. I went to their football camps when I was at Abington every single year I was there. So I was already sold. I was like, listen, let me just compete to play running back. You got me. You got me. He's like, nah, we want you to play linebacker. We
Oh,
already have
wow.
some young running backs, and they had some goodness. They had some dudes. Kajana Carter,
Yeah.
Mike Archie, Stephen Pitts. They had JT Morris out of Virginia, who was a beast. And all I wanted to do was just go and compete. They were like, no, we're loaded and we're young. And they had talent. So they weren't missing me at all. But I wind up committing to Ohio State on the spot, and I just felt like it was the right fit for me.
You could have been the next biggest linebacker, a linebacker you. Instead, you go
Or
to
I could
Ohio
have
State.
convinced them once I got there, hey, I'm not as good a
True.
linebacker as you think. You might want to throw me on the offensive side of the football.
Well, it worked out well for you, though.
It
Again,
did.
92 to 95 at Ohio State. You played for John Cooper. Tell us about 1995. It was your Heisman Trophy season, All American season then as well. School record, almost 2,000 rushing yards. How good were you feeling going into that season and through that season? And did you think that it could end in a Heisman Trophy?
Well, I hope that it would, but that wasn't necessarily on my list, my priorities. It was, to make my teammates better, to win the Big Ten championship, to play for a national championship, and as a byproduct of that, if I'm playing well and doing my job, I would get recognized and be in the conversation of winning a Heisman. I had on my goal list rush for 2,000 yards, rush for 25 touchdowns that year.
Yeah.
Become All American. I remember it, and I would look at it every day on my mirror, and I fell just shy of it. 1927, 23 touchdowns,
24.
24 touchdowns. Had won every major award in college football. We came one game shy of winning the Big Ten championship, and we finished the season the top five in the country. So, I damn near accomplished everything that I set out to do. And what led up to that was the work that I put in at the end of my junior year. My first year was starting, and I had to understand the position as a starter. I had to prepare differently. Um, it requires you to do more than everybody else. You can't be the last one in and the first one out. The last one in is LIFO. You can't be LIFO. Last one in, first one out. That's not it. You got to be the first one in, last one out. That's philo. So, it's got to be that, and that's what I had to do. Go in, work twice as hard as everybody else, and see with a clear vision what I wanted to accomplish, and put all my cards on the table. And I just felt that summer was something different. We were all working together. We would have our own player run practices. Coaches weren't there. We had our own script. We would compete. We would compete hard. We would make sure other guys were showing up, because nothing was more important than playing. If you had anything else to do outside of that, like go to barbecues or go out and party after the workouts, then you weren't there for the right reasons. You just can't clock in and clock out uh, on the coach's time. We got to take ownership of this,
Mhm.
because we saw we could have. We saw we had a really talented team: quarterback, running back, receivers, um, uh, linemen, defense. I mean, we looked at the blueprint of Penn State of '94 and was inspired by that. They kicked our ass good in '94 when we went up there and lost 63-14. And we said, okay, what's different from them that we don't have? There was nothing other than they were a team. They bought in, and that's what we had to become more selfless, fight for each other, and have a larger purpose. And that's exactly what we found.
Seems like some of the principles that I'm sure you're passing on to your players now as the head coach at Tennessee State. But you win the Heisman Trophy, very close race between you and Tommy Frazier from Nebraska. What's it like on that stage? You hear your name called, and then you've got to give your speech. How much did you practice that speech ahead of time, hoping that you would have a chance to give that speech?
Well, I used to practice it when I was 12 years old in the mirror. Um, and just who I would think, and because I was a shy by nature in terms of speaking. Um, but I didn't practice. I didn't have anything practiced. I didn't have anything prepared. I thought about it, but I didn't want to, I guess, jinx it. I was just going to trust my heart in terms of they're going to get, you know, a speech that's in the moment, that's real, that's authentic. Uh, and it was shocking. You know, when I won, I was like, oh shit, I just won the Heisman Trophy. And I made a beeline over to my mother and I hugged her and I could see the joy in her eyes. And I just drew a blank because that was the moment that my life changed. And I said, hey, I'm going to thank who I need to thank: my friends, my family, my teammates, certainly my coaches. And I just basically told any kid, like, hey, you know, if you have a dream, um, hold fast to that dream, no matter what detours you may take. It's not a detour; it's just another route for you to get to your ultimate destiny. And it's meant to show you something along that detour that's going to prepare you for whatever's next. So when you think that your dream is straight line and it's going to go perfectly A, B, C, D, nah, you're going to go A to Z, back to A again. Okay, and then maybe go to K, then L, M, and O, P, then back to A again. And that's your journey, and you have to embrace that. So that's what that taught me, and that's what the Heisman was like. It's life changing.
And your journey from there continued on to the Houston Oilers slash Tennessee Titans, eventually drafted in 1996, 14 pick overall. What was that moment like? So you go from the Heisman Trophy, that to I'm sure dreams coming true, getting picked by an NFL team in the first round.
Well, yes, it was. I was elated. I was excited, but I was more about the work because there were still question marks around me. It was still like the underdog. Well, he won the Heisman, but
Mm.
Heisman Trophy winners, they all tank, and he's too big to be in the running back in this league to the last. He's two runs up, two up right. He's too tight. He's this, he's that, and that fueled my fire. I said, okay, now I know what I got to do. I'm glad that it's like that. You know, I just won the highest award you can win in college football to now being questioned in the NFL. So it was short lived. I was about business day one, and I wanted to go out and prove to people in the league that hey, I can play at this level at a very high level. And my focus was to go out there and make noise from the start.
And what made you so successful? Over 10,000, rushing yards in your 9 year your career. Why were you so successful when the doubters said you wouldn't be?
One, God given ability. I've been blessed to play that long without missing a game due to injury. Um, it was my commitment to my craft. Um, I had to sacrifice nights that I couldn't go out with the fellas. I had to get my body right. You know, I was always stretching, always lifting, always doing something that I could find as a differentiator from everybody else. As I was carrying the ball, 30 times in, 30 times out, and that takes a toll on the body. And I had to approach it differently. So I attribute it to my strength conditioning, my mindset, my spirit, my coaches, my strength conditioning coaches. That's Coach Kennedy from Ohio State, and Steve Waterston, who was with the Houston Oilers slash Tennessee Titans. And it took a lot of people to help me get ready for game day. I can't take all the credit, So there were times when I was in a low state of mind and I wasn't feeling myself. I was doubting myself that I could get from one Sunday to another Sunday. But it was through watching guys like Bruce Smith, excuse me, Bruce Matthews, my teammate,
Mhm.
who was the Iron Man, who showed up to work, hurt, didn't matter. Steve McNair, same thing. And it was because of their tenacity and their willingness to sacrifice their body for a larger purpose for each other. It made it easy. So a lot of factors go into that.
Yeah, and I know the fact you're just a second guy with over 10,000 rushing yards to never miss a start. The other one is Jim Brown.
Hmm.
You've gotten a lot of honors and awards, but is that something that you hold up in higher esteem because it's you and somebody like Jim Brown?
Yes, I mean, nobody else can say that. Nobody else can say that in the history of the sport of NFL football. Me and Jim Brown are the only two backs in the history of the game to rush for 10,000 yards without missing a start. And that's not something you can sweep under the rug and be like, anybody can do that. Well, no, they can't. There's been one other person to ever do that. And that person is the one guy that's held as the greatest of all time, not just running back, but the greatest player of all time in any sport. He's in that category. And it's quite an honor to be in the same breath with him.
Again, you talk team wise, you guys go to Super Bowl 34. I know it wasn't the result that you wanted, but what was it like that season, the 99 season, going through that journey and getting to the biggest stage that the NFL has in the Super Bowl?
It was special, special group of guys. We struggled together. We struggled to have an identity, struggled for a home, moving from Houston to Nashville, struggled to get a fan base, struggled to get excitement generated around the team. And once it all came together with the new uniforms, the name, the stadium, there was an excitement in the air that we weren't used to having and that we were going to fight to keep. And it all came together for us in '99. We just drafted Javon Curse, who was a freak of nature off the edge. And we said that was the missing piece we needed defensively to really be a contender. And it allowed us, offensively just to beat you up in the trenches and wear on you and wear you down and let our defense eat. One thing you wasn't going to do against our defense, you wasn't going to bully them, you weren't going to run the football against them. And we had to see that every day. So it was truly iron sharpens iron every single day. So once we got that chemistry right, we just reeled off those games and we made a Super Bowl run.
For you, in all 9 years, and for some, maybe they say, well, what's next? But for you, there was a lot of what was next for you. Acting, you're an entrepreneur, obviously a coach now, but were you thinking about retirement, and how did acting get into the mix of okay, this is what I'm thinking of post NFL career?
Well, it kind of led into for me wanting to be a really good commentator and a great communicator, storyteller, was to get into acting and also to get on the silver screen. That was my goal. I found joy in it. It was therapeutic for me at that particular time, making the transition to filter a lot of those feelings that I had conjured up about how my career ended, with frustration, fear, the doubt, all filtered through character. It was cathartic. And it taught me a lot about myself in terms of how to listen for others. That's the mark of a good actor, his ability or her ability to listen and then to respond, not just to wait for your lines. So it took me out of my comfort zone in that regard. And I enjoyed it. I still do. But that was preparing me for ultimately what I'm doing now as a head coach. I got my master's in business. I started businesses. I have my wealth management business, my Series 7 license, my health and life license, 60, all of it. And it's just really understanding the principles of business, relationships, trying to find the right opportunities for clients, operating with a level of integrity that you're going to make the best decisions for your clients in the wealth management. And I wanted to help young athletes with their life after the game. That's how I got initially into it. And help them eliminate and avoid the same mistakes that I made earlier on in my career, and to have a mindset of, hey, let's save versus spend, which is tough to do for it to tell a 22-year-old that's making millions of dollars. But saying, hey, the back end, you really want to focus on that, is that, you want to have enough money to where you can have the freedom to pick and choose whatever you want to do, not having to go work a 9 to 5 to get back into, a good financial situation. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And use football as a conduit to find your purpose. So that's what I was doing, and I enjoyed it. But when the coaching thing came along, um, in fact it prepared me. All of that prepared me to be a coach, to be a teacher, to be a mentor, to be a storyteller. Um, all of those things that I've done up to this point has helped me prepare for this.
And at Tennessee State, was it intentional to be an HBCU where you can have such a great effect and you're seeing more notoriety and more emphasis putting on HBCUs these days? Was that intentional that's where you wanted it to be?
It wasn't an intention to go get a job. Okay. It wasn't to say, okay, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go be a head coach. It was presented to me as an opportunity. And it just so happened to be an HBCU. And it led into my decision to say, it is an HBCU. They could use this team could use the help, the culture. Um, and yes, that was a big part of my decision in terms of why I chose to go this route. But it wasn't solely what I was looking for. Like, hey, if I get into coaching, I'm going to find an HBCU to go do this for. Um, that wasn't my approach, much like Coach Prime's was at the particular time. Um, it was just I knew about TSU. I live here in the community for well over 20 years. I have friends that have played for TSU. I know the brand of TSU. They produced so many great athletes, not just in football, but basketball, track, you name it. They've been able to produce some Hall of Famers. So Wilma Rudolph. I mean, they're Olympians. So it's well known that hey, this is not a hand-me-down university. They're just in a place where they just need a little love, some polishing, retweaking, and get it back hopefully to national prominence. So I looked at it as an honor to be the head coach for Tennessee State.
Heisman Trophy. You were inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. You had your jersey retired with the Titans as well. You're in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Is there one honor that you hold above others, or that you kind of take a step back? Now that journey a little bit as a player is done, and think, wow, that's pretty special.
All of it, honestly, all of it. I mean, to be in any Hall of Fame is great. Ohio State Hall of Fame, Fort Union Hall of Fame, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, the Titans Hall of Fame. I mean, it is an honor to be considered that. Semifinalist for the NFL Hall of Fame. So it really feels good to be recognized. So it's not one thing over the other. I think it's all encompassing to say, man, one decision, just one decision, and the willingness to commit and to have the guts to see this all the way through without knowing the end result. That led to a lot of accomplishments.
Do you think you would have been the greatest athlete ever at Edinburgh had you gotten there? Would you have found your path to the NFL from Edinburgh?
I would have probably found a way. I probably would have found a way. And again, who knows what life holds. I don't know. I probably would have worked my tail off and figured out a way to get recognized and played for the Scots. So, but I felt in my heart that I was being led in a different direction.
What was maybe more nerve wracking? Your Heisman speech, you're getting on stage
Mm.
Broadway
Ooh.
in a musical, Chicago, playing Billy Flynn. Are there
Nerve
any
wracking.
comparisons to
Listen,
that?
listen. No, I listen. The Heisman is one thing. You get a couple passes for being in the moment, on stage. But to do that night after night and have to hit those high notes, yeah, that's a little nerve wracking. Lost my voice the first week I was up there in New York, so that was scary. And I was like, I have 4 more weeks of this. But that was an exciting time to go on Broadway to play the role of Billy Flynn in my life. So that was awesome.
Truly, as your website says, you are a Renaissance man. And again, get ready for your season coming up. Can't thank you enough for spending a little time with us. I'm sure you're on social media. How can people follow you, follow Tennessee
Yeah.
State football this season as you kick off with Notre Dame?
Yes, you can follow me on Eddie George 2727 on the Twitter platform as well as Instagram. You can also follow Tennessee State football at tsufb.com. FB. So you can tell me to the .com there. I'm showing my age now. So, but that's how you can follow us. We open up against Notre Dame, but that's not the end all be all. We have a very competitive schedule. We play, three of our first 5 games are against teams that have played in the FCS playoffs. Kennesaw State, UT Martin, and Gardner Webb.
Okay.
So we got our teeth cut out, or our work cut out for us. So we got work to do. I'm excited about it. The one thing that I'm focused on is to get us all in one accord, thinking the same way, operating the same way, with positivity, with optimism, with hope, with love, with joy, and constantly focusing on this culture. That's the number one thing. That's my number one job, is to refine, and reinforce who we are, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and staying consistent, persistent through that. So, we got a lot of work cut out for us.
But I can see Fork Union is kind of your driving force, right? That's a discipline. It seems like that you lean on as a coach. It seems like.
Well, that's all I know. That shield back there, body, mind, and spirit. I've lived it. It's my lifestyle, and I still live it to this day. And I've seen the benefits behind it. And again, not everybody is going to be aligned with that, or is not going to resonate with everybody, and that's okay. It's just not the bus you need to be on. And that's for coach, that's for player, that's for any staff member. It may not be for you, our way of doing things, and then that's okay. I'm perfectly fine for that. The thing I can't tolerate is people that's going to go against that, complain, talk behind your back, not be man or woman enough to really speak your mind and be an asset to what we're trying to do. Those people are liabilities. They're they're energy vampires, and there's no place for that on this bus.
Well, you and Clyde Simmons on that bus, I'm sure you're in good hands for both of you guys, the rest of your staff as well. But again, we wish you guys the best of luck, and certainly we'll be following your progress this season, and hopefully it turns into a playoff appearance later on this season as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, Mike.
Well, another great guest, great story there from Eddie George. And our thanks to Katrina Chambers with the Tennessee State Communications Department for arranging that sit down. And we thank you for watching and listening to today's episode, and invite you to subscribe, to like, and to share our YouTube channel and our other streaming platforms as well. For JR Quitman, our creator, producer, and director, I'm Mike Vaccaro. We'll see you next time for another episode of In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.